You sat down to relax and ended up doing something else. Not something urgent, just something. Anything. Because doing nothing felt worse than it should have. Here's the part that surprises most people. For some of them, a quiet Sunday afternoon is genuinely more stressful than a full week of work. Not figuratively. The brain responds to rest the same way it responds to a threat. And understanding why changes how you see the whole thing. The question isn't why they love work, it's why doing nothing feels like doing something wrong. And the answer goes somewhere most people don't expect. The first thing to get right? This isn't workaholism. Workaholics work because they want to achieve something. They have ambition, goals, a direction. That's a different thing entirely. The person who can't relax doesn't need to be driven, they just need to be doing something. Anything. It doesn't matter what, the doing itself is the point. And here's the part that tends to surprise people. Many of them don't even like what they fill the time with. They genuinely prefer to stop, but can't. Here's what it actually feels like from the inside. The moment a task ends, something shifts. Not relief, a kind of low-grade wrongness, like leaving the house and wondering if you locked the door. Nothing is actually wrong, but something feels off. The instinct is to find something to do, not because there's something that needs doing, but because doing something makes the feeling go away. The emails get answered at 10 p.m. The Sunday afternoon becomes a project. The notebook gets rewritten for no reason. The week that was supposed to be a rest becomes a different kind of work. None of it feels necessary exactly. All of it feels necessary enough. Picture this. It's Saturday afternoon. No work tomorrow. The week is done. Someone sits down on the couch with the specific intention of watching something and doing nothing else. 20 minutes later, they're also replying to a message. Then they're writing a short list of things to do next week. Then they're looking something up that occurred to them. The show is still on. They haven't really watched it. They didn't decide to do any of this. It just happened. The way hand washing happens when you're near a sink after touching something. The relaxation setting was in place. The relaxation didn't happen. And the strangest part is that the tasks they found weren't satisfying either. They were just less uncomfortable than the nothing. That gap between the intention to rest and the inability to let it happen is where this whole thing lives. Here's what's actually going on underneath. The brain has a network specifically designed for rest. When you stop doing things, this network, called the default mode network, is supposed to activate. It handles reflection, memory processing, creative association. It's the brain's equivalent of an idle setting, and it's more important than most people realize. In people who can't relax, this network has trouble doing its job. Not because anything is broken, but because the brain learned at some point that idle isn't safe. Staying alert, staying occupied, staying on top of things, those became the signals that everything was okay. Rest got associated with lowered guard, with vulnerability, with the kind of pause where things can go wrong. So the experience of doing nothing stopped feeling neutral and started feeling exposed. This is more specific than general anxiety. It's a learned vigilance toward the state of not doing itself. The body treats an empty afternoon the way it treats an unclear situation. Scan for something to fix. If nothing presents itself as broken, find something to improve. The discomfort doesn't come from the outside, it's generated internally by the absence of a task. What makes this easy to miss is that it looks like competence from the outside. These people get things done. They seem capable and energetic. The discomfort they feel when they stop isn't visible to anyone else. And because the system works, no one looks for an explanation of why it never switches off. Researchers have a phrase for this, leisure anxiety, which sounds almost paradoxical until you've felt it. It's not anxiety about anything in particular. It's anxiety at the prospect of having nothing to be anxious about. Rest, for people who experience this, is itself the stressor. But here's where it gets strange. Because you'd expect, logically, that these people feel worse at work and better when they finally get a break. For a surprising number of people, it's the opposite. Research on how people actually experience their time has found that free time, especially unstructured free time, produces more stress and discomfort than working hours. Work has a task, a structure, a reason to be in the room. Free time removes all of that and leaves you with yourself. For people whose sense of self is built around doing, that's not a break. That's the hardest situation they encounter all week. The second surprising thing is what this does to the work itself. People who can't rest tend to believe they're protecting their output by staying on. They're not. The brain consolidates learning, processes experience, and generates new connections during downtime, not during focused effort. Every hour of rest avoided isn't a productive hour banked. It's a recovery hour lost. Over time, the inability to stop starts to cost exactly what it was trying to preserve. But here's the finding that tends to land hardest. The tasks aren't really the point. The inbox, the list, the thing that needed looking up, those are just the nearest available tools. What's actually uncomfortable is being still with nothing coming back. No output, no response, no evidence that the time was used, no task completed, nothing crossed off, no answer sent, no progress made, nothing to show for it at all. For someone who built their sense of themselves around being useful, that isn't rest. That's a test they haven't studied for. Knowing this and recognizing it in daily life are two different things. It wears a lot of disguises. It shows up as the person who always has just one more thing. They're about to close the laptop. They remember something. Then one more. Then one more. The stopping point keeps moving, not because there's more to do, but because stopping itself is the thing they're not ready for. It shows up in how they consume leisure. The show is on, but so is the phone. The walk happens, but with a podcast. The meal happens while reading something. Pure, unoccupied time. Nothing in the ears, nothing in the hands, nothing to produce or respond to, almost never happens. Even their rest is occupied. It shows up in what happens on the rare occasions they do properly stop. Instead of feeling restored, there's a faint guilt, like they got away with something. The rest doesn't land as rest because some part of the system is already calculating what it cost. And it shows up, quietly, in how slow days feel. Not lazy, not behind. Something more specific than that. Like they haven't quite earned the right to be moving at this pace. There's a thread running through all of this, and it isn't really about work. At some point, for reasons that vary, being useful became the evidence. Not evidence of working hard. Evidence of being worth something, of justifying the space you take up. Work wasn't just work. It was the proof. And rest, by definition, doesn't generate proof. People who can't relax aren't addicted to doing. They're attached to what doing tells them about who they are. The discomfort of an empty afternoon isn't boredom. It's a question that the stillness asks, and that they don't yet have a comfortable answer to. Who am I when I'm not doing anything? The shift, when it comes, isn't about techniques for switching off. It's about something quieter. Getting to a place where the answer to that question, even on a slow afternoon with nothing to show for it, is still enough. The next time you find yourself reaching for the list on the day that was supposed to be free, it's worth pausing for just a second before picking it up. Not to stop yourself, just to notice. There it is again. The familiar pull towards something to do. And maybe, for once, letting it sit there on the table unanswered. That's not a small thing, but it might be the actual thing.